This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Folks, it is officially smallmouth bass season. It always cracks me up. If you're listening to the show, you already know that there's largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass. But we'll get a Lake Lanier, we'll get a Lake Hartwell thrown in there. We'll get a Table Rock, like a mixed bass fishery. But I can't remember a season that was decided on spotted bass. Occasionally we'll get a season in the last 10 years it's decided on largemouth. But primarily, you've got Red Crest qualifications, Classic qualifications, requalifications for Elite Series and the BPT, and you have like invitationals to determine going up to the BPT or opens to get into the EQs that are all decided on brown bass, on the smallmouth bass. And I wonder if that's kind of like a recent, if we could just have a guest on that's been around since the 80s, who's been there and seen it all on every single tour. Well, we're not going to keep him waiting. We'll just bring Shaw Grigsby right in right now. Has it always been that way, Shaw? Has it always been, man, you better learn how to catch smallmouth or else your year's kind of dependent on it?
Well, it's ending up that way because of the way the seasons change. So used to be bass started in September. And so that would be the first tournament of the season. And we would go through May and then have the Classic in the summertime. So when they changed the season time of our time frame of our tournaments, then that changed it up. So because it's a lot of what you look at too is when can you fish those fisheries, and you can't really fish those fisheries up north. The smallmouth, they have a season. Usually it's like June 15th before it comes in, so you really have to wait till later in the season to fish it that summertime. So so it's been more of a recent thing when they changed our seasonal time frame, took the Classic to the springtime and did all that.
40 plus years. You recently announced that 2025 was the last full year competing on tour. You're fishing the MLF Invitationals. Now I'm a little interested, Shaw. You kind of pulled a last minute one on us. Unless I missed the press release or before, it was kind of like right at the last second you were like, hey, the invitational season is ending. And then like 2 days before it was like, oh yeah, and I'm retiring. Was that intentional? Did I miss something there? Or talk us through the decision there, Shaw. Why did we not have a farewell tour where everybody could put the fake mustaches on and bid you farewell? You get the kind of send off. I mean, 40 plus years, you kind of deserve it. What was with the last minute announcement?
So I told everybody, I'd contemplated it the year before, and then I told everybody that at the beginning of the season, I'd come up on stage and I'd tell everybody that's the end of it. I'm ending at this season. I didn't make an announcement, and I thought I was just going to quietly, I was going to fish the season, and when the season was over, step back and do what I can for my sponsors and spend more time at home and do my second job here. But it didn't work out that way. We did Dano is a real good friend, Dan O'Sullivan, and he said, man, you can't step away without telling people. And so he wrote a press release, and next thing I know, it's like boom, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was more an intent not to blow things up, but it was, anyway, that's the way it worked out.
press release comes out on the 24th. The final Tackle Warehouse Invitational out of Messina kicks off on the St. Lawrence. Now you catch them everywhere you go, but I wouldn't say you're not like on the top of the watch list when we go to the St. Lawrence. And all of a sudden after day 2, you have Chris Johnston, who's obviously one of the best ever to do it on the St. Lawrence River, Clay Reese, and then the godfather of the West, John Murray, who's won 8 billion boats out there. And then in fourth, 2103, 2309. And all of a sudden, heading into the final day here, you are in 4th place on the Invitational. Could you script anything better as a going out party, Shaw?
No, that was a true blessing. I mean, that really was. And I was catching them shallow on that tungsten thunder cricket Strike King, and it was special. And my mistake, and this is typical of getting older. You don't make choices as fast. You don't make you don't change things as quick, and I really should have expanded much more, because that last day I still caught plenty of fish, but I caught 3-pounders rather than 4-pounders. I did catch a 1 almost 6, 5.15, and I lost one which would have been an amazing catch. It probably was at the 7-pound mark. And I hooked him. We were on live, on the camera live. They were getting ready to close out the show. They came to me. I start talking, and I'm going down this bank, and I look up and I just go, oh my gosh, look at the size of this smallmouth. And the boat's being pushed. You got current, you got all that, and I spun out and backed the boat up, and I spotted him again, or her again, and made a cast with a little Strike King Ned rig. She kind of went left, I went right, so I reeled it in real quick, and I fired off in front of her, and it's in the grass, and I'm like, doggone it, in the grass, and I popped it out of the grass, and she charged it and ate it. So I set the hook on her, and she strips, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 feet. I mean, just, how they do. They're just beasts, and they scream the drag out there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this fish is huge. And then it turns, I get a little bit back, and then it screams again, and I'm turning the boat to rotate out to the open water. Get me out in the deep water where I can just sit there and fight her, so I don't have to worry about all these grass clumps and rocks. And she just pulled off. And so that one would have kept me up there in the top, but it was a magnificent day, and to have the camera with you on your final career day of your life is pretty special. I mean, that was real special, real blessing.
I mean, did you think there was an outside chance you might be able to track down Chris? Like, did you have there wasn't a fleeting moment like before takeoff where you went, you know what, maybe after 40 something years, like something magical can happen today?
Well, I tell you what I did think. I said, the only way anybody's going to beat him is if he breaks down and doesn't make way in. I mean, you got to understand those guys, those brothers are incredible. I mean, when you take the river, it's a very hard time to beat them. And hats off to anybody that does. But they are truly the kings of the St. Lawrence and Ontario. And of course, that's probably one of the most magnificent places to fish ever. I mean, that's just a magnificent place.
Dan O'Sullivan, like you mentioned, came out. It did a good job of writing that kind of press release that talked about 40 years started the year. He started the year I was born, Shaw, in 1984 there. That's a good year. I believe that was an Olympic year. And walk us through kind of when you kind of started thinking it, when you formulated it. I know you had mentioned maybe at the beginning of the year you knew it was your last one, but when did it kind of cross your mind like, hey, my days running the tournament trail might be, on a regular basis might kind of be coming to a close? Because let's be honest, I mean, there's still another decade that Rick was out there before he hung it up.
Yeah. I actually fished my first BASS in 1977. And I didn't follow the tour. I fished one when it would come to Florida, and then I fished another one. And I'd fished 5 BASS tournaments before I jumped out as a professional. And I believe that was early 84. 4. So that was when I'd made that decision that I was going to try to make it. I'd, done fairly well in all these other tournaments and saved up enough money. Are you ready for this? Saved up $8,000. So $8,000 was going to carry me on the BASS tour for 2 seasons. Two seasons. Okay. Now it doesn't hold for 1 tournament. Yeah. But anyway, so you fish your lifetime in doing this, and it's who you are, and it's really hard to step away. But the body tells you. So everybody ages different, and the body tells you, and the mind tells you when you're not as sharp, you're not making the decisions quickly. Your body takes, instead of taking 2 days to recover, it's taken 6 days to recover. Little things like that you just go, it's time. And you also want to enjoy what you've done. So, I've had a great career. I mean, it's been fantastic. I mean, you can't imagine unless you do it, and you do it. So you do know a little bit, but you're in the middle of it. So you really don't understand. But as you get older, you realize how special it is to be a professional bass fisherman, how special it is to make a living in a sport that you absolutely love and are passionate about. And that's just special. And so my whole life has been, for 40 something years has been incredibly special. And I want to be able to spend time with the family, enjoy my retirement, and enjoy it while I can, physically and mentally, and spend some time with the wife, take some vacations, spend some time with the grandkids. I've got a granddaughter that's 6, another one that's 8, and a grandson that's 18. So I got three grandkids, and want to be able to spend time with the family. So it all worked out, and I knew it. I contemplated it 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago, and then I just said, no, this is it. This is definitely it. I'm hardline. This is it. I'm out this year. So 2025, that's it.
What did you do prior to 84 when you went full time? Like, what was your occupation, so to speak, in the 70s before going full time?
Well, in the and I think it was in the late 70s, my dad was involved in a business, a pest control business, biological pest control. So bugs that ate other bugs. And so that's what we did. We had a pest control business. He was a college professor. He had invested his money, and the guy kind of messed him over. And so he took early retirement and ran this business. I dropped out of college at University of Florida and worked with him. And so we ran that business until such time as we sold it after I went professional in 84. And Dad was always funny. This is kind of a cool story. So my dad would always tell me, because I was off fishing and trying to run the business with him and helping him at the business. And he said, son, if you'd ever spend as much time in business as you do on fishing, you'd make $1 million, and so when I won the Red Man All-American in 1984, and they handed me this $100,000 check, and he had this grin, man, it was this big, because he had never seen that much money in his life, he, I think the most he ever made was maybe at $30,000, $38,000 or something as a college professor. And so that really stunned him. And so then he was on board. Of course, he always said, I support you any way you want to. He said, whatever you want to do, as long as you're happy doing it, I'm behind you. And so, but he did want me to be more involved in the business. Well, when I won that, and then it started going, then we sold the business, and then he started traveling with me, and he fished with me for all those years. So he would be my practice partner, and we had some great times and traveled together, and then he would help Ray and Dewey at the weigh-ins, and just so he became part of the team.
I did not know that. That's awesome. There it is right there. Terry Battisti, Bass Fishing Archives, kind of the history of the sport lives on this website. There's a picture of you. Looks like you're wrestling a big one on a broomstick out of some cattails there in that 1984 All-American event. That was back when it was with Operation Bass, obviously before
FLW.
But that was kind of the career catalyst, was it not, Shaw?
Yes.
I know we've had you on to talk about this. We did a whole series of, Stephen Browning and you and a number of guys who have been launched kind of careers by the All-American, especially back then, the $100,000 of pomp and circumstance that went around with it. But looking at that picture right there, what do you remember about that tournament?
Oh man. So day one, I stayed up in Toho and fished hard and because it was, I'm a Florida boy, so there was a lot of pressure on me to win this, and so I stayed up in Toho and just worked real hard and caught enough fish to be 2 pounds in the lead, and I went to bed that night, and it was like 2 pounds in Florida is like ounces anywhere else, because there's so many of those big fish, and back then there were a lot of big fish. So the next day I go out and they put the camera, they only had one camera guy, so they put the camera on the number 2 guy because he's mashing them, and he's a great guy, and I forget his name, but he really truly had the coolest thing going, because I talked to him after the fact, and he had figured this deal out where he could be on one of those shell bars, and he would take a lipless crankbait and he'd make 10 casts at the same spot, exactly same spot, put it down, pick up a plastic worm, throw it in there and go dunk and catch him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you figure that out? Isn't that cool? But I mean, he would call them to that spot, throw, they'd all be looking because there's this noisy rattling bait, and then he'd throw the worm in there and catch one. And so anyway, day 2, I'm fishing, and all of a sudden the camera boat comes to me in about an hour and a half. And I went, oh no, that means he's whacked them. And I haven't done very good. My crankbait fish kind of fell off. I was using, I think it was a little Bagley or something, or I forget. It was a crankbait that I was catching them. So I packed up. I mean, it was brutal weather. I packed up and ran all the way down to Kissimmee. And there was this one little island that had some good hyacinth mats in it. And I pulled up to it and started flipping. And the first thing I did was jack a 4-pounder. And then I jacked like a 3-pounder. And I jack another big one. And anyway, and then that pretty much sealed it. So I went from cranking as a key dominant thing to do to flipping. So when I win that thing, I was a flipper. Because that's what I call it. Says it right here,
the Bagley DB2 crankbaits outside weed lines. Then you went to flipping, and you moved back to Kissimmee in hopes of culling smaller fish. It actually worked. Your day 1 partner was Bill Sargent. Have you seen this article?
Yeah, I have. I really don't remember it, but I probably have. But Bill Sargent was really great from Tampa. Oh my gosh!
He said on day 1 that your arsenal included an all chrome devil's horse. So in 1984, you were throwing chrome. You were ahead. Yes. You were ahead of the blueback curve there, Shaw. A 7-inch bass assassin worm, black body with a blue glitter tail. A chrome blackback Bagley's Killer B2, a grape fire tail peewee worm, a Gable green Bill Lewis rattle trap, and a large all black jelly worm.
Isn't that great?
What of any of those baits have you had any of those baits in your boat in the past 5 years?
Probably have that prop bait, the Devil's Horse.
The Devil's Horse.
Prop baits are incredible, and I've switched my lipless to the red eye shad from Strike King, so I have that, but it's not Bill. Back then that was the only lipless. Really, you had that, and you had a hot spot. Yeah. So the Cordell hot spot was out. I think one of the earlier ones that came out, and so.
Now, I know that the All-American gets a lot of credit for kind of launching your career, the $100,000. You're talking about how your dad saw the check and was like, holy cow. But the other fishery that comes to mind, and I know I think Clay, one of the other guys that mentioned it there, is you owe a lot to Sam Rayburn, especially in the early days, those late 80s and early 90s. Your first 3 wins with bass all came on Rayburn. Like what kind of clicked between you and Rayburn as a Florida guy going to East Texas?
Well, so I go out there and I go practice, and this was, for the first one, and I go and I go back and start just looking because I really, in Florida, we have so many of these springs that are crystal clear, and even our lakes, even though they're tea colored, they're a little brown, but they're still clear. You can see down, 4 or 5 feet. And so, I got to be a pretty good sight fisherman. And so I go out to Rayburn and I go milling around, and all of a sudden I'm seeing these giant fish. I mean, Rayburn was incredible back then. See these giant fish swimming back in the buckbrush. It was high water, and I saw some starting to spawn, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And we only had to be off the water like 14 days ahead or something like that. So it was pretty quick. I knew I was coming back in a couple of weeks, and so it turned out that I started sight fishing, and back then a lot of people didn't sight fish, and they didn't even really think about it. It was early. So it's one of those things where most of my sight fishing wins were wins where it was early and other people weren't doing it. So people would go, no, it's too early for it. And I'd find them in a little warm pocket and stuff like that. And in fact, this is kind of a twist on that same story. I remember I'm looking for the warmest water in the lake, right? And I'm at Rayburn, and I did terrible in this tournament. And I'm looking for the warmest pockets to find spawners early, right? And Clun goes up and he's looking for the coldest water to find pre-spawners, and he runs way up the river and mashes them, and I never find good warm water. I just thought so I was doing the opposite of what a lot of people did. I was looking for that warm water, trying to find an early spawners, and it worked out. I mean, I would find them in the tournaments, and then I would find enough where I would never really stay on one spot. So I would hit one spot. I would have 3 main areas, that had big ones. And the first day I'd go in, it'd be like Farmer's Cove was one of them that I loved. And I'd go into Farmer's and I'd catch them a big sack, whatever, 20 something, 30 pounds, whatever I catch, 28, 26, 25. And the next day I would go in there. If there was anything left, go in there real quick. Then I'd run to another area and I would catch a big sack there. And then on day 3, I would start there real quick, pick up what's left, and go to a final area and usually top it off. So that's how I most of the tournaments I won was by having 3 distinct areas and then working one pretty heavy one day, one the next day, and one the next day.
Wow. And I would assume back then, like, you figure something out, the only people who are figuring it out with you are pals and buddies that you're telling. Like, there's no one that can be like, oh, he was catching early spawners doing that. Like, is that was able to kind of translate that?
Well, people see you, so they know that. And then you have a partner. So back then it was all draw tournaments. So, you get drawn, and one day and this is one of the tournaments, pretty sure I won it. This one, I had Ken Cook as a partner. And it was so flooded. It was way, way back up in the trees. I'm back up in park benches and stuff like that. And anyway, we came by this thing, and I already had a pretty good bag of fish. And so I stopped, and Ken's not happy with me having a big bag of fish. And I said, listen, Ken, you catch this one. I mean, it's a like a 4-pound male. It's a big one. I mean, full grown, just like it's going to be good. So we stop, and it's just an old rubble pile that, somebody had piled up on the side of a road, but the road was flooded. So, and we're sitting there, and I'm coaching him. I say, okay, shake it. You got good. He's coming in. Okay. And I'm walking through the whole deal. Right. And I look down, and here is this giant, which is the female of that bed. And she's right beside the boat. And I just take my rod and I ease it over, and I punch the free spool and just let the bait go down. And she goes, looks at it, and I mean, literally under the boat, she eats my bait. I jack her up, and Ken is madder no order than me. And I'm like, I didn't know, dude. I promise you. And I still to this, I did not know that fish was there. I knew that male was there, but I'd never seen the female, and I catch her. But anyway, so yeah, it was a fun time to have that, but you did have other people fishing, and then they would learn it and continue with it.
I had Rick Pierce on last week, and Rick mentioned And is there any truth to this that like you and Guido were friends and he kind of taught you some sight fishing tricks really early on, and that's one of the reasons why you are Shaw Grigsby sight fishing aficionado kind of goes back to
100%.
Guido Hibden. Really?
So we got paired at a super bass tournament. So one of my early tournaments at on the, I think it was a super bass anyway, on the St. John's, and he and I ran down to Salt Run, where they were spawning. And so we go into Salt, and I'm loving it because this is my deal, sight fishing. And Guido, of course, had the tube bait, the little tubes, and that he would hand make, and so I started, fishing them, and he'd catch one, and he'd look over after I was pestering one long time. He'd go, "Are you done with that one?" I go, "Yeah, go ahead." And he'd throw it back, and he'd whack that one. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And so yes, I learned about the tube bait, and the gets it, which was what it was back then, the gets it, and that really opened it up, because those baits just really, I mean, I didn't realize how good they were. And they were really good at enticing bedding fish. So it was more like maybe a little crawfish was coming into it, and it was special. So yes, Guido taught me a lot. I watched, I learned, and Guido was an exceptional sight fisherman. And so, yes, I owed a lot to him.
Yeah. One of the, I guess a core memory of me would have been that 2011, well, we've got a special guest on. We'll bring him in here for 5 minutes before the break. I don't know if he was able to find any footage, but the beatdown with the one and only Grant Goldbeck in the back of the canals in 2011, the Elite Series. Let me see if I can get this right. You're throwing a white Rage Craw, but you had like a little red thing on it that I believe Robert Hamilton was kind of making at the time. Am I getting all this stuff right?
Perfect. It's just a little red cap, and it was to focus the fish on that. And I had tested, so when they came with red hooks, red trebles, and I'm filming my show at the time, and I said, well, let's see what these red trebles do, because I'm a bow hunter. Okay, so if you have pins on your bow, your distance pins, for your sight, and the red one at night is the first one that disappears. So as it gets darker, the red disappears. Your green, your yellow, they stay up there and you can see them. So I was wondering about these red hooks. So I put them on jerk baits, and I found that they definitely, if you put it on the front hook, they focused on the front. You put it on the back, they focused on the back. So you would catch them mainly on those hooks. So what do? You put it on the middle. You got hooks on both ends. You catch more fish. So there's a little tip. If you want to take that tip and catch more fish on a jerk bait, you put a red hook in the center. But as you get deeper, of course, that red is going to cancel out. But anyway, so I said, that makes total sense. Let's try it. And he had sent some to me, and I tried them, and they were definitely focusing on the red. So, you caught them.
Interesting. Here it is. Here's some pictures of it. So that was our first. Well, we'll bring in the guy who was doing it. There's Mark Jeffries right there. Who wanted to,
hey,
how you doing, Mark? Happy retirement there.
Yeah, man. When Matt told me that he was going to have me on the show, I said, listen, I'm going to be in Detroit. I'm making my way back. It's going to be a long night, but would it be cool if I just take 5 minutes? And I want to say congratulations to Shaw.
Man.
And you were such an instrumental piece of the history that was made on that day. I mean, you and Grant were the first guys to ever be live streamed, live action from the water as it happened. That was the first time that it happened.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And there's a story behind it, and Harold Allen's right in the middle of it. All right. You remember when we first started, Harold kind of was the commentator, and he was working a lot, doing stuff where we were doing the live stuff, and we were trying to figure out a way on how to get the action between you and Goldbeck without bothering you guys in those canals. So Matt and Harold ended up hooking up with a guy. I don't remember the guy's name, but they ended up setting up shop in his backyard.
It was Rush. It was me and Rush. Harold wasn't there. He was back in the studio.
Yeah. And they ended up setting up in the back of this guy's yard, live streaming the whole thing between you and Goldberg.
That's awesome.
So I didn't have time. I know that footage exists somewhere in my studio.
I asked for one thing, Mark. I asked for one thing. I wanted the live footage. I wanted that footage.
I know. I got back late. I didn't get back till almost 1:30 in the morning last night, but I didn't get a chance to find it. But that was just epic. And I just wanted to say thank you for all the years that you were a great interview. It was so cool to be able to engage and really pass along so much information to the fans from the answers that you gave from the work that myself and Matt and Harold did for all those years on the Elite Series. And you had a gift. I mean, you're a very gifted, talented person, but you had a great gift on day 1 and 2 to tell me so much information without telling me anything.
Hey, there it is right there. Can you see the red? I'm circling it right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
the
right
red
there.
cap. And when we did Dancing with the Devil, the story of Bob Hamilton, Robert Hamilton, the dude fought some personal demons, is still fighting him, but a Bassmaster Classic champ, very talented angler. When Mark went and filmed that documentary on him, like, he was all in on these bait caps or whatever you would call them.
Yeah, that was something that he felt was just really revolutionary and all that, and Bob and I had roomed together, and then he had his issues, and so when he came back with it, I said I'll be glad to try them, and so it worked out for that, but I don't think it worked out for Bob. So.
No, I don't know. I remember Mark, he was talking about like how he was going to ICAST, and that was his way to making millions and things. And then Shaw had won on it. And there was a point where me and you were like, maybe.
That was
it was not. I want to take a break. When I come back, are you good, Shaw, for another segment? Because we haven't gotten into a whole nother. I don't even want to call it a chapter, because you're like, you've got 2 books at once. You've got a bunch of stuff going on. Let's just say, I was talking, I did a show the other, and I used first names, and I said, there's 5 that come to my mind as a 41-year-old. I said, Bill, Roland, Jimmy, Hank, and Shaw. And I had him on, and he goes, yeah, no, that's the 5. And you all had something in common. I kind of want to get into how that kind of played a part in your career. You can hang around, Mark, if you want to, or if you've got more recruiting to do.
No, hey, I got to go, but I just want to say one more thing. And I have this collection, and I actually have the collection.
Oh, grab the hat. The hat with the green Q. I know Shaw's a big lose guy now, but there was a time back in the day that he was part of one of the most iconic pro teams in pro fishing history.
Do you remember these, Shaw?
Yes, I do.
All right. I think, and it could be wrong, but I have autograph hats from probably what Matt said, one of the most iconic pro teams in the history of fishing. And when John Kushnerick came out with this idea and developed these hats and your brand, it was so cool. So I want you to know, man, that it's still with me. And once again, man,
I'm honored.
Best of luck to you. It means a lot to have that, man. You're special.
Thank you. Great to talk to you again.
All right.
See, Mark.
See you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Dude, I totally forgot that was a wild pro staff. It was KVD. Yep. Let's see if I can remember this. KVD, Tommy Biffle,
Rojas,
Gary Klein, Dean Rojas, yourself,
Gerald,
and Gerald Swindle.
Yeah. It was an incredible incredible team. And I told them at one meeting, we had a big meeting with Kushnerek and Bagby and all that. And we're sitting around. I said, listen, you really don't need any of us. You got KVD.
Yeah. Well, no, you had one of the most sought after rods. Like your rod had a cult following to where even because everyone had their own color of an action of rod. And did you have two?
I had a blue bait caster that was really designed for, worm fishing and stuff like that. And then I had a spinning rod for sight fishing. Yeah.
The blue bait caster had a cult following. People for years and years afterwards tried to get their hands on that blue Shaw Grigsby quantum bait caster.
Yeah, no, it's a great rod. It had that parabolic bend and everything for really, great worm fishing. So yeah.
Cool. I'm still gonna stay on Mark's case. I want him to find that footage because it involved a flip camera on a tripod with a firewire cable that went to a Tough Book that was connected to a SIM card to the internet, which was then sent to Mark, who had command center set back at the hotel room. To get into that place, Mark, and it was right when Google Earth came out, and we knew the pond that you guys were in, and Dave and I had to piggyback off of like an 80-year-old. It was a senior living center, but it was heavily gated. Had to piggyback off of someone to get through the gates. Then we drove around to where one of the houses that was on the canal. Then I literally went up, knocked on the door, and said, "Here's the deal." I said, "Your backyard is where it's going down at. I would love to film there." And he said, "Well, I don't have the internet, but my son does. Let me call and see if you're legit." Elderly dude who lived in the house. So he called, his son said, "Yep, you're legit. You can come in the backyard and film," which brought, Edna and Ethel who live next door coming out and Melvin from the other side coming out. And then all of a sudden Bob went in the garage and came out with the grill. So we had hot dogs and buns and the whole neighborhood. No one knew what the hell was going on because no one had internet. The internet was like something they'd heard about on Fox News. So it was quite the memorable experience.
Oh, that's and
then
awesome.
you and Gran, I think, for a sight. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in this tournament, but for a sight fishing tournament in close quarters, where pretty much all the damage went down in one literal pond that was 5 or 6 casts across, I've never seen two guys work so well together with so little bit of tension. Did I misread that back in the day? Or did you guys work together famously in that event?
No, we were friends and that worked out, real well. And, the first day killed him. So the first day he came in there quick and left. He caught like nothing the first day. And then he came back day 2 and mashed them and then continued to do well. I remember that final day really, really what, stuck a fork in me for I was working one that was like a 6-pounder and it just wasn't ready. It was just out here and there. And I'm like, gosh, I don't want to leave it, but you can't just stay on a fish,
Mm-hmm.
And I left it. I made that decision to leave it, dude. It wasn't, an hour later he pulls in and she had settled down and he whacks her. And I'm like, man, I knew I shouldn't have left her. But anyway, so you're thinking that fish could have made the difference. So I wasn't sure I'd won until those fish got hung on the scale.
Yeah, 75 pounds around over. And then Grant had like 73 on that. But the cool thing about this pond was, and I remember it because I went back in it a couple years ago in an open. And I just was going around. I was like, oh, this is bringing back so many memories because I watched it for 2 days out of a backyard. But like there's like a hump in the middle of that thing. So it's not just like you have the fish that are on the seawall or around the docks that are spawning. You've got, it's wide open across the middle and with the clarity. And you kind of had a really narrow entrance. So there wasn't really anyone else in there. It was you guys kind of milling around, but it was 360 all across the middle. Those fish could be set up anywhere. It was cool to watch.
Yeah, it was a neat deal. I caught a 10 even on a swim bait that really won the tournament for me on day 2. I had like 29 something and that day, but I'd worked that fish. I'd seen it day 1 and there was 2 big ones and I could not get them to go. And so I come back and she's still there. One of them was still there. The other one had moved in, and Grant was working her, which was like a 13-pound fish. And he was working her. She just moved off of this bed and went to that bed. And so I start working this one and couldn't get it to look at anything. And I grab a swim bait and throw it over there, and she chases it. And I said, I got you. So I threw the swim bait back over there, let it sink down. I started to reel it out, and then I jacked it one time where it really, twitched and darted, and she just choked it. So I catch her, and I had her hooked. When I say I had her hooked, I had her barely hooked on a piece of skin, and it held the whole time, and so I got lucky by not trying to force that fish in. It could have ripped out, and then it would have been different outcome.
It's almost a crime. We're 41 minutes in. I haven't said the 3 words, one more cast. That's kind of what I want to talk about after the break. We'll get into that, TV adventures and stuff. If you're good to hang, Shaw, I'll keep you. I'll keep you for another segment. All right, it's BTL on a Monday, August 4th. We will be back with Hall of Famer Shaw Grigsby right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Pro Bass Adventures is reinventing Mexico bass fishing. With boats equipped with 12-inch Garmin units and LiveScope Plus, free loaner fishing rods, and no-cost airport transportation, Pro Bass Adventures is proudly putting you in the best position for success. Pro Bass Adventures has lodges on Lake Baccarat and Lake El Salto, Mexico's 2 best trophy largemouth bass lakes. Visit probassadventures.com or email probassadventures@gmail.com. The official Mexico fishing lodge of Bass Talk Live.
As a professional angler, there's only one thing that connects you to your paycheck. Probably the most crucial part to tournament bass fishing. I use Sunline because they have a line for every application. Shooter, FX2, All Might, super light line, big stuff, big sticks. Sunline has you covered.
Sharp as can be. Super strong, super durable.
Really good penetration.
Thinner and stronger.
Catch fish after fish.
I want to make sure that I'm using the best stuff possible.
World's finest hook. World's finest hook.
Gamakatsu, world's finest hook.
All right, welcome back. BTL on a Monday, chatting with the iconic Shaw Grigsby, just announced his retirement from tour level fishing. And Shaw, I know we ran a Gamakatsu commercial there. I'm trying to get rid of that little echo in the background. Does that help? That might help a little bit. I know I ran a Gamakatsu commercial there, but when I think of iconic fishing commercials and iconic marketing, the Trocar black, blue, like that thing from back in the day, like I'll never forget that. Like they had you and Skeet and stuff, just looked like certified badasses.
Yeah, it was really a cool ad campaign they came out with. I mean, we got all of this tactical gear and they really made it really beastly. It was really fun. So that, yeah, I was part of that. That was cool.
20 years. I mentioned the names, Bill, Roland, Jimmy, Hank, and yourself. Talk about how you got into the TV game, because that was a whole different element, before social media, before the internet. That was really what you saw the superstars doing. and you were right in that mix with One More Cast, which ran for 2 full decades. What was the story behind how that got started?
So I had filmed with different guys, and they would ask me, hey, to be a guest on their show. And I loved watching, TV fishing shows. So, cause I was a fisherman, so you would learn some stuff, you'd get some enjoyment out of it. And, I had some great guys that I kind of had met through fishing that were really good at those things, at filming and writing and music and all that. And so I put together this little team, Woody Blackburn, who had done some event television. He was always doing the Bass and Golf and Bass and Race. And he said, hey, let's do a series. Would you be willing to do that? And I said, sure, be happy to do it. And so we got these guys together, which are all just, amazing people. Mark Emery, Parker Bauer. So when you get world-class talent behind you, then it worked out really well. We had Robert Wooten as a camera guy, and he's still amazing. All these guys, like Mark Emery's won, I don't know, 3 Emmys or something, and Parker, he's just an amazing editor, an amazing writer. He wrote some of Walker's Cay Chronicles, some of these iconic shows.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, so to have those guys on your team, it was special. I had no idea. I mean, like, I thought I was going to go fishing. So one of the first shows we did, we did a tarpon show, and those tarpon would only be there for about the first 30 minutes of a morning. Just as day breaks, it would, light would come up and these tarpon would be glooping, you'd hook them. And so the guy that took me down there tarpon fishing, he catches one right off the bat, and I'm like, good. They take pictures, and I'm like, all right, let me catch one too, while they're still going. It was like, no, we got to get this shot from this angle and this shot from this angle and do all this. And I realized real quick, it wasn't anything about fishing. It was about, art, making it look good. And so,
yeah,
it really kind of a change of pace, but I love doing it, and it was fun. And it turned out to be pretty good. We actually had the highest ratings for like 3 seasons on TNN, when we were on TNN, and which was, a testament to the guys, the team, because it wasn't an individual, it was a team deal to be in television.
Was that looking back on it, like, was that, do you think, an important I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Everyone now, you see a bunch of guys with all the YouTube channels and all of that marketing and stuff. But back then, I mean, that had to be massive for sponsors to be able to say that you had a network TV show that was in an outdoor block.
Yeah, so it probably kept me out front. It kept me in the mix on those low years, those years when you weren't catching them, on tour. But overall, it really didn't change. There was very few sponsors that moved me from a professional angler sponsorship to a television sponsorship, meaning you went from getting, X amount of dollars to getting, double or triple or something like the television guys did back then. So it really kind of stayed the same, but it did keep me relevant, keep me up front, and of course it's there for lifetime. When you do things like that, it's cool. I guess because I love teaching. I've always enjoyed teaching and helping people be more successful at the sport, and so in doing that on television, it made a big difference in a lot of different anglers' lives. And to me, that was kind of the legacy of it. That's really neat.
How long have you been with Strike King and Triton?
Wow. I don't know, 20 something, Strike King was long time. And I really don't know, I've never been a detail person on stuff like that, but the longest sponsor, let's see, the longest sponsor that I've had is Mercury, and that started in late '84, beginning of '85. So that's been my full career. Was with
40
Mercury
years
and,
with Merck.
yeah, and Lowrance, the same thing. They started
Yeah.
with that. And
what was your first Lowrance unit? Like the
Oh.
first one where you're like, hey, I'm sponsored by Lowrance. I get X, X, Y, Z covered and they're paying. Like, was part of your sponsorship getting the paper for the graph at some point in your career, Shaw?
So my relation with Lowrance is I bought Lowrance when I'm a kid, right?
Okay.
I bought a 1240A. Okay. So that's the little greenish gray, 1240 plastic, bluish gray, I guess, flasher. So that was mine. Then I had an X16, which was a paper graph. But when I got with Lowrance, I really don't remember the units because they would only be around for a year or two before they develop something else. Once you got into these liquid crystal screens and you really started, the technology just advanced. I mean, Daryl it was so cool to be there in the early years with Daryl Lowrance. He was so bent on making the best. So it wasn't about the marketing, it wasn't about advertising. It was about making the best unit out there. And so, I mean, to be a part of that, I mean, I remember other companies, and I won't mention the other names, other companies coming with units that literally were kind of junky, but had a lot of whistles and bells, and people would go buy them, and then all of a sudden they weren't working. And Daryl wanted the best units. He wanted it to be the best sonar you could have, the best picture you could have, the best, live it, make it last forever and all that kind of stuff. So those years were really fun. The early years with Lowrance were really fun. So I've never left them. I've been with Lowrance my entire career. So that's cool. Yeah.
What do you think the key is? What do you think you did right with Lowrance, with Triton, with Strike King, with some of these companies to develop 20, 30, 40-year relationships through economic depressions, through the good times, through all the different trends, and you were able to stay with them?
Well, I think these sponsors become like family. You get to know them, and you have personal relationships. And I think that's a big part of it, is to have a personal relationship and with your sponsor and be able to, go beyond just the work aspect. But because in the work aspect, you'll have a marketing, the VP of marketing come in, and he'll be there 2 years, and he's gone to another business. He's gone to another company, and then you have to redo that. So that relationship. So it's good to have those relationships and then have them solid. Where, a lot of my bosses are still buddies. They may not even be with the company they're over at some other place, and we still talk, and so that's kind of a part of it, is to do that. But I always felt too that I wasn't demanding more. I was always saying, let me show you what I can do, and let's do it. And then you tell me what it's worth, that type of thing. So, I probably never maximized my income, but it's been fine. I've never complained about it, because I still think I'm the most blessed human being in the world to make a living doing this for, 41 years, and the enjoyment and the fun and the travel and the people you meet. And amazing. What an amazing life.
Was there ever a period where you had to kind of fish your way through burnout? You've always seemed incredibly positive, wanting to share the sport with others. You have the infectious laugh. You're always hanging around with your fans afterwards. But was there ever a part of your career where you were like, had to kind of fake your way through that? Or has it always been something that you've had a passion for 4 decades?
I've always loved it, and I've had a passion for it. And I've always said, when I get home, I may travel, be gone for 3 or 4 weeks straight, tournaments and sports shows and tournaments, and then get home. And you get home, and what do? You go fishing. I mean, that's what I love doing, and now it's taken, my grandson enjoys it. So, we'll go out and go fishing, and I got a feeling we'll be in some tournaments with him, and
oh boy,
local stuff. But anyway, but yeah, so I mean, I love it. So I don't know that I ever got burned out. I can tell you that, it's not something that I rush out to do as much now. But that's because I got some other things to do, which is basically fishing too.
Hey, maybe a little. So when I was there and did some filming with you, you had like 2 of your old conversion vans that you ran on tour that were still, and I think you had like designs to like bring them back to life. Like, do you still have the old van that like was the it vehicle of the 80s?
Yeah, I got a van, a Choo-Choo Custom, which was, a sponsor of Bass.
Yeah.
Beautiful conversion, man, was it's beautiful. Chevy, I bought it, for personal use, and then signed a big deal with Team Brunswick or Citgo or one of them at the time. And when I did that, that means they gave me a vehicle to use. And so I ended up selling that one to my in-laws, and he drove it around forever. And then when he passed, it went back to me. So I have that van, and I have not done anything with it, but it is.
Got to bring that back. You're retired now, Shaw. That's what retired people do. They restore vehicles from the past. Like I feel like a Shaw Grigsby conversion van tour is in your near future.
I get the old jumpsuit or the vest.
I mean, you want to intimidate people at the local boat ramp. Have Shaw Grigsby show up to the local derby, towing the Triton with the 88 conversion van with the camel leather interior.
It's really nice. It's a nice vehicle, and I was going to donate it to one of those places that would enjoy having it and make money off of it and help kids and stuff like that. So who knows?
A couple more, and then I'll let you go. I thought it was funny that in the press release, like your main activity in retirement is rehoming nuisance alligators with your grandson Bryce.
So what we do is we capture them, and it's fishing. I mean, I use my Lew's Super Duty. It's a Super Duty reel and a 7-Eleven extra heavy Super Duty rod. It's a musky rod, and 80-pound. Use a Smackdown or Tac X. Tac X is really good, and fill it up with that. And I have a Trocar 3/0 Trocar hook, which they made for that big nickel spoon, and
okay.
And getting a hold of them is like, I don't have many left, and it's scary to think that when I run out, I won't have them. But they're the only hook that I know that really penetrates. So you see this gator, this gator's coming after dogs or they're in the guy's swimming pool, or they're at somebody's front door and you can't get out your door. And so we get this call, and we go out there and capture them. And sometimes all you have to do is take a lasso and put it around them. I got one on campus the other day where, University of Florida, they called me, and I come up and we have.
Wait, you removed an alligator from the University of Florida gator campus? Okay, continue with the story. I just find that ironic.
It's like 10 o'clock at night or 10:30, and I drive up and by myself, and I have a PVC pipe that's 7 feet long. It's a little shorter now because a couple of gators have bit off the end, but so it's 7 or 6.5 now. And I put a kid's lasso that you can buy at Rural King. It's like a 15-foot lasso for them to learn to lasso stuff,
to
if you're on a farm. Right, rope. So I thread it through there, so you put the loop on the pipe, and it sits out there, and you slide it gently over their head. You get it around their neck, and you cinch it down, and they go crazy, and they're rocking and rolling. And this one turned to get after me, so it's a 7.5 foot or whatever, and it wheels real hard and hisses and like, I'm gonna eat you, and I'm like, no, you're not. And I gently slip it over while it's got its mouth open, like trying to scare me, and I cinch it down, and it goes nuts, and I just perp walk it all the way off this boardwalk out to the road. And they have these little barrier poles that are so cars won't, hit people on the deal. So they're concrete pipes, that are there, and I wrap him up on that, and I fight him a while till he gets tired where he won't bite you. And then I
Is there like a
jump on him.
crowd gathering? Like I know students
Yeah,
are starting to come back. Like, are there people going, look at that? Like you are Florida man at this point.
Yeah, we get a lot of crowds when we catch them, and it's fun. It truly is fun. And so that's one way is a land gator, and then we have most of them are water gators that are like, we had two. Unfortunately, this year we've had two that ate the pets, the home pets, and that's sad because pets are kind of part of your family, real big part of your family. So the land gators, the land gators, you're going to lasso them. The water gators, I use that Super Duty with that trocar, and I cast it over them, hook them, we fight them up, and then we finally bring them up where we can get the lasso on them, and then we pull them in, secure them, close their mouth, which is the touchy thing because you don't want to get bit. But if they're real tired, it's pretty easy to get their mouth closed.
You jump on them, or you let the grandson jump on them?
So far, I've been doing the jumping. He's jumped on a couple.
How many gators you jumped on in your life, Shaw?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I mean,
like,
I really
don't. We talking 50? We talking 100?
Yes.
We talking north of 100?
We're talking a lot.
So you have like a go moment, like where you're reading the gator, you're seeing where it's tired, and then from everything I've seen, like if you hesitate, you're screwed. So you have that moment in your head where you go, now is the time, without hesitation. You straddle the gator, you jump on its back, and you get the jaws closed.
Yeah, you basically take in the palm of your hand, and you're going to jump on his back. You're going to have your knees to hit right on his front legs, behind his legs, and you're going to slam his head to the bottom to the ground. And you don't slam it, you just push it. Now, most of the time they're so tired, they're just sitting there. So when you do that, they do that, but they do lift it and try to get you. So you're holding it down, and then you're going to reach your hands around the side, while you're holding it down and get them. Then you lift it up. And I've only had to do this one time where I had to tape it by myself. So most of the time I've got Bryce, or I've got Ron, who's the nuisance trapper. I work for Ron Sanderson, Captain Ron Sanderson. He's the nuisance trapper. And so, I'll be holding on to him, and Ron will just tape him, or Bryce will just get it and tape him. And we do, 10 or 12 wraps, and then we've got him. Then we pick him up and put him in the trailer, and we take him to Gatorland. We've got a number of gators at Gatorland, which is a great tourist attraction. If you want to see alligators and learn about alligators and wildlife, they have some pretty cool stuff there, and different gator farms around the state. So that's what we do, and it's a hoot. So it's a lot of fishing, and a lot of my fishing knowledge comes into play, casting accuracy, hooking them up, fighting them, how to fight them. It's like fighting a 10-pounder on an 8-pound test, and you fight them around, and then they settle down, and then you end up landing them. And so, yeah, it's a hoot. It's a lot of fun. And that's really my retirement deal. It's not for money. It's for just fun. I mean, it's stuff to do, and it's a good service because, one of them, I had to catch one the other day. I caught one about, I don't think it was quite 8, but it may have been 8. I'll have to look at the footage. But we're filming these and put them up on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. We probably do YouTube stuff with it, but I had to catch one. It was all cabbage and weeds, and you couldn't catch this gator. And this was the gator that ate a lady's dog, her pet. So I finally had to say, I know what I got. I got a Strike King popping perch. I tied it onto my 80-pound, and I throw it out in front of him, and he eats it, right? And he's on this willow bush, and I got this footage on my phone. He's on this willow bush, and instead of being smart and cast in front of him and have him move, because they chase that frog, right? Have him move about 3 or 4 feet where he's over the willow bush. No, I'm a dumb professional, because when I saw him move on the frog, the next cast was dead on his nose, and he ate it. Now he's still in the willow bush, but. So I remember setting the hook on this thing and pulling as hard as I can with this popping perch.
Wait, so it eats it, and then you just Greg Hackney him.
Exactly. I jacked him up. And you see what I'm seeing in my eyes. Now, I got a chesty on. So you got this footage of this rod and me shaking, pulling so hard as I could pull. And this gator plants his feet, so I'm going to try to plants his feet, right on the willow tree, and I'm not moving. And so his front feet are on that, and I'm lifting him up. And then I back off, I reel down again, and then lift him again, and then he turns around and goes the other side of the willow tree. And that brings about an hour and a half of work into it. We had to get the John boat and put it in there and put the motor on it, and the battery, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm telling you, it was like, oh my goodness. So, but we did get him. So that's it. But I did get one on the pop and perch so far. So it's fun.
We went 45 minutes talking about your career and all these tournament wins, and I don't think you dropped a sponsor. We start talking about gators, you've dropped the hook, you've dropped the line, you've now dropped a bait, and you've dropped a rod and a reel. That's pretty slick, Shaw.
Well, you know what? These guys, and I wear my shirt, and I know you don't have I'll do this. I got mine right there. Yeah. Yeah. So these guys have been with me my career, right? Yeah. And if it wasn't for those, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't, especially the early guys, like Mercury going, yes. Bill Booker was incredible back in the day, and every one of them. I mean, Michelle now they're all just wonderful people and have sponsored me for so long. And everything from Bob's Machine and Sims and Starbright and Lawrence, like I said, Seagar Fishing Line. Trocar's been with me like since the first day. I mean, I've been with Eagle Claw since the beginning of my deal. So you look at all these sponsors and they're so important to you. And so, a lot of guys do them with their normal shirts and just do that. And I did a cast yesterday because I just got out of church and I just didn't put my jersey on, but I felt that these guys deserve the notoriety and deserve the time on camera, deserve it, because if it wasn't for those, you wouldn't be out here. Mm-hmm. And I got a new one this year. So, which is right there.
Thor with it. There you go.
Thor lithium. And those guys are incredibly great and cool batteries. And they have this little, of course, they have a great crank battery, which is like a 150 amp hour crank battery, which means you put this on your boat. My Mercury, now I hit that thing and it doesn't go, it goes, and when it goes to crank, it fires up. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And you can't run it down. I mean, you can't, it's impossible. You can turn all your pumps on, everything. You just can't run it down. So what an amazing deal. And they make a little itty bitty one, which I use for gator hunting. It's a little small 12 volt that weighs 14 pounds and has 62 amp hours. So when I lay it in there and I hook that little trolling motor up, my motor guide, I can push my John boat for however long, I mean, all day, and never run it down. And it's just a tiny little, 14-pound battery. So I'm actually getting that one. I don't have it quite yet, but I'm getting that one for gator hunting. So yeah, sponsors are very important. You have them on your show. Oh yeah. And with Rick Pierce and the Bass Cat and all the rest, and those guys are wonderful. And if it wasn't for those, you can't do what you do. And so we thank them all, and we ask everybody that watches, everybody that talks to us, help these guys out. Utilize these people. If you're looking for something, looking for a boat, looking for a motor, look at these guys that sponsor that give back to the fishermen.
Well said. You got time for one more thing?
Sure.
All right. I want the story behind this. That's the Shaw Grigsby tube hook with the most confounding configuration that I never figured out how it worked until one of my buddies was like, look, you do this with it. And then I'm like, my God, it's genius. It is the cult following. What's the actual name of it for the iTunes listeners?
It's the HP hook, the high performance hook.
Yep. The Shaw Grigsby HP tube hook.
Yeah.
Walk me through how the heck that thing came about, Shaw.
Man, I appreciate it. So let me tell you why I really appreciate you asking about that. So a gentleman named Tommy Clark lives just north of me here in Hampton, lived just north of me here in Hampton. He developed a hook and he said, hey, Shaw, I've got this hook. I'd love for you to look at it and play with it because I just don't lose fish. I catch like every bite that I have on worms. And so he showed it to me, and I started playing with it. And I said, Tommy, great hook, but we need it to do this. We need it to do this. We need it to be straight. We need this to be this. And we started tweaking it, and he kept playing with it. And when he was done, it was this. And then I said, now we need something to hold the bait on, because I don't want to bait. You know how you have, even with 90-degree hooks, that little clip you see in the top there, that it unsnaps. It's a clip. So you unsnap it, stick your worm up over it, and then snap it behind it. And that pin holds the bait on, and it won't let it slip down. And so he developed all that, and then he worked on that. And if you look at the line, that eye, so if you take that, the point, and then look at the eye of the hook, it's that point, if you line it up, is about 2/200ths or something. It's above the eye. So when you bring that hook out of a fish's mouth, that hook point is above it and is going to penetrate, going to grab something, right? And so anyway, all this was designed and tweaked, and all Tommy Clark brought it to me. And then I tweaked some little things, and I'd ask him, man, can we do this? And he would go bend it, and he would go get it done. He'd heat them and do it. And so we came up with this hook and started making them ourselves. We actually went to Eagle Claw. They made the hook for us. Then we would package them in the house and sell them. And so, and at one tournament at Guntersville, it took 8 out of the top 10. So the top 10 guys in the BASS tournament at Guntersville, when we first came out with it, 8 of the top 10 guys were using HP hooks. And that's really cool. To me, that was cool. And so it took off, and it inspired a whole generation of hooks, because EWG came out after that. So they took that hook and turned it into, regular worm hooks, that design. And it actually was the treble hook. So when that treble came out, I said, we need to take these and make a treble. And so we put them together, and I said, I don't like it because it's more interned. Mm-hmm. I want something when the bass, strikes at something, I wanted to snag them. I want to catch that fish. Yeah. And I thought that the intern wasn't going to be good, but boy, was I wrong about that. So another guy, he came to me at a ICAST show when they first came with that intern treble, and he said, they
first came on Bandits, didn't they? That's the first crankbait I remember where that pear-shaped hook came on, like the old school Bandit 200s, like where you'd look at it and you'd be like, what the heck? I mean, this would have been like 90, like mid 90s.
Yeah, so that hook, he came out with the hook and sold it to, and I don't remember the guy's name, but we talked at ICAST, and he showed it to me, and I said, I tried it, but I just wasn't impressed because it was intern. But man, like I said, it changed everything. But yeah, he had it to a hook company, and then a bait company bought that and changed it. And those trebles that I use from Trocar, those big ones for gator hook, and the TK, it was
shaped
the old
like that.
TK, absolutely, and they're truly incredible hooks. So
I remember,
so it kind of inspired that. But here's what I want to tell before we get to another question. The reason I was so happy you asked me about the HP was that guy, Tommy Clark, who is a personal friend, dear friend. He just passed away last week. Oh, so wow. I appreciate that, and that's a true testament. He designed so many things. He had so many patents. He just was one of those guys that was exceptional and truly going to be missed, and a great individual. And so the people that met him and talked to him and worked with him, they know what an awesome guy he was. Great Christian, great friend, and we just he's now in a better place.
And he was a heck of a tinkerer, because if you look at all the bends and the twists and all that up there, like Tommy's mind worked differently than 99% of people when he looked at something. I could tell that. I never even met him.
He was truly, we were working on some stuff for really small hooks, as you get older, you got to have, like right now I have glasses, and these are, I see fine without them, but everything, if I take them off, everything close is not, so they're cheaters, they're readers, whatever they are. But Tommy, you know, as you get older, most people have to have these. And Tommy was designing this little thing to thread your line through a tiny little eye of whether you were fly fishing, whether you were crappie jig fishing, because he loved his crappie fishing. And so just an amazing guy, always tinkering, always trying to figure out a better way to do something and to help everybody have a better time on the water. And that's Tommy, and that's really cool.
Back in the day when I got really big into the old 10-inch worm, the 10-inch power worm, but I was convinced at the Thunderbird jackpots, when you put a 10-inch power worm in a brush pile, I wanted a 5/0 straight shank, but not a flipping hook. I just wanted a straight shank so I could get it out. And I would buy these hooks, and then I would bend them just enough to where I could get them off of the eye, and then I would put them back on a 5/0 straight shank. Then I'd pin that 10-inch worm in with the straight shank. I thought I was really doing something there. I was putting just that keeper on a different hook.
So many guys came to me and would get just the keeper. Say, hey, man, I just want the keepers. And I'll put them on the hook, and, you know, they put them on their hooks. And it was pretty easy. You could actually bend the clip a little bit and slide it on a hook. And it worked out really well. And so that keeper was amazing. It's just a clip. So it opens up, a spring clip. It opens up, you slide your bait on, you hook it behind the bait. Pin would stick into the bait or hold it behind the bait, and it wouldn't slip down. And so what that did was it allowed your bait to stay up, not slide down, not bunch up around the hook point, and you would catch the fish. It had no option but to catch your fish.
All right, Shaw, I'm going to let you go. That's over an hour and 20 minutes. You're welcome to come on the show whenever. It sounds like you're still going to be around. I would assume a lot of your partners are still staying with you. You're still going to be fishing. You're going to be jumping on the backs of alligators. It's definitely not for a lack of mobility that you're retiring. I do want to kind of close it with this, though, and then I'll give you the floor for the last. So I was kind of looking for a synopsis of your career highlights and all that. And as we get into the age of technology, you know, AI is wild. So would you like to know how AI summarizes Shaw Grigsby's career?
This will be cool. Yes, I got to see this.
It's one sentence, and I think it's pretty cool. And this is what AI says. And I asked, here, I'll tell you what I asked. I said, I would like an overview of Shaw Grigsby's career, including his TV show and notable tournament finishes. That was the question I asked. This is the closing line of it. And I think it, for all that you can say that's creepy about AI, because, you know, before I still do a bunch of research for it, but now anybody can ask you these questions. You just type it in and boom, you know. This is the closing line, though. Shaw Grigsby's career wasn't just about catching fish. It was about connecting with people, sharing knowledge, and leaving a legacy of joy and faith in the sport.
Wow.
Not bad for a computer to come up with that, is it, Shaw?
That's special. You know, I had one of those moments when they sorry, it'd take me a second here. Anyway, when they did that at the tournament in New York at the registration, I didn't know. They surprised me with this, you know, Shaw Grigsby retirement deal and a little kind of a little party there. And Kevin Hunt, who runs the invitationals, he had asked all these questions, and we told some stories and stuff, but he said, you know, I went and sat down, we're getting ready to have a meal, and he goes, hey, I just want to ask a question. How many of you guys were affected by Shaw Grigsby, you know, learned something and all that, and you know, made an impact on your fishing career? And so, you know, we got 100 guys or whatever there, and I think pretty much every single one of them raised their hand, and it just stunned me because I never think about that. I just think about that I'm who I am, and I love fishing, and I love the sport. And when they did that, I went, wow. And so that's an honor. That's cool.
All right. Anything else before I let you go, Shaw?
No, man. I've enjoyed you, and I'm appreciate you having me on.
Thanks. Enjoy it. Enjoy, well, whatever, retirement, jumping on alligators, hanging out with the grandkid, kicking everyone's butt at local tournaments.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you later, Shaw. See ya.
Thanks, man.
All right, the one and only Shaw Grigsby. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got a lot of fishing that's going on this week with a lot on the line as we reach I think that is the tournament before the last tournament called the penultimate tournament, the penultimate Elite Series tournament I think that's what it's called. The penultimate, or the next to last is also another way to say it. And the final BPT of the year, where, guys, we've got some big names that either have to catch them or it might be their last couple events. So it's BTL on a Monday with Hall of Famer. He's in like 4 Hall of Fames too. He's in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, and then also the Legends of the Outdoors Hall of Fame, Shaw Grigsby. We'll be back after this.
Beatdown is efficient.
Rock solid.
100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the Beatdown double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the Beatdown.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top unarmed, Strike King.
Gear that just plain works. Cast after cast after cast. AFCO. Any fish, any water.
Welcome back. Wrapping things up here on a Monday with Shaw Grigsby. Before we go to break, so I don't know if anyone else has this problem. There's like certain lakes that, even though I've been there and I've talked about them for 20 years, I can't remember the name of them. Lake St. Clair is one of those names. Like, for the life of me, that's why I was like penultimate and then like froze. I couldn't remember Lake St. Clair. It's been like that for, even when I fish the open there, they'd be like, oh, where do you go next? They'd be like, oh, the lake over by I don't know why I can't remember Lake St. Clair, but the Elite Series is on Lake St. Clair. And then the last Bass Pro Tour, they're on top of each other, which kind of sucks, is on Saginaw Bay. Let's take a gander at the standings for the Bass Pro Tour. I'd be very interested. I don't know exactly like how the cut line is working on the BPT right now, like who's out, who's not. I do know that it is Skeet Reese's. We had him on when he announced his retirement. We'll probably have him on afterwards again. Legendary Hall of Fame career of Skeet Reese in its current form. He's got Reese Fishing. He's talked about that a lot on the show, but this is the final regular season event for Skeet Reese on the Bass Pro Tour. I mean, there's 66 of them right now, and they're bringing 5 on, and there's going to be 50 next year. So, a lot of guys that might be competing in their last one this week. Jacob Wheeler is leading Jake Lawrence by 20-something points. So if Wheeler catches him, which he has a tendency to, he should be in line, I think, for his 4th Angler of the Year. It's funny, I asked Michael Neal, who just had a really good Bassmaster Open on the St. Lawrence, if anyone has a shot to catch him. He's like, no, you just give him the trophy right now. Speaking of the St. Lawrence, the Johnston brothers, like, just decimated everyone all weekend long on the St. Lawrence River, like, for the last 2 weeks. So you have Chris blows away the Invitational by like 7.5 pounds the week before. So then he couldn't fish in the Open because obviously he would be fishing in off limits waters. But his brother Corey fished, I think it was I don't want to misname it, Thousand Islands Open, something out of Kingston, which was like right on the line for the off limit. So he could like stay in the lake. Him and his dad won $20K on that. So you have the $80K win for Chris and 20. So there's $100,000 like that. Then Corey, since he stayed on the lakeside, didn't affect the off limits area, goes and fishes the Open, bides his time, stays around, messes around for the first 2 days, makes other people think that they've got a chance at it, then goes, cracks mega sack on the final day, wins that Open. So you're like classic, automatic classic berth, which is good anyway, like $170,000 with incentives. I'd venture to say that the Johnstons in 3 separate tournaments clean swept everything, all 3 major tournaments that were taking place, and won about $200K between the two. Yeah, the lake was off limits in the Bassmaster Open. So, all right, that's all we got for today. Big shout out to Shaw. Always been fantastic. Like, he's one of those dudes who's always been, he's nice, not when the cameras are on, he's nice all the time. Like, I went and visited him back when I was doing some stuff for Bass Insider, do little tips and tricks and all that stuff when we were shooting all this, and I was doing some in the house and some Bass Talk Live, or at the time it'd be Bass Zone footage with him. And you know, I went to his house. He took me to the University of Florida, to some ponds, to like, he had like a lemon tree or maybe an orange tree at the time. Like, it was so cool to just sit there and look in his office. And that was, 15 years, probably 12 years ago that I was out there. But one of those dudes that it's hard to find anybody in the industry or on the water to say a bad word about him. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a bad word about Shaw Grigsby. Getting a lot of people into it, obviously, with the One More Cash show and all that. So, all right, that's all we got for today. Same time, same place tomorrow. We'll talk to everyone then. See ya.